G'day everyone. I'm just going to do a sort of crash course in Diptrace. I'm no pro at this. It's a complex program, and I've just used it to make a few basic sort of layouts for guitar pedals. So it's going to be a very basic sort of intro into using the program. Hopefully by the end of it you will be confident enough to get around and maybe make a basic sort of layout. That's my objective here. As I said, I'm not a pro at it. Hopefully I won't do too much stumbling, but I'll show you what I know so far. So to start off with, basically you need to add components, obviously, and finding the right component can be half the trouble. I've actually found what works pretty well for a number of components, and I'm just going to show you the numbers that I've used for those so that you can find them in your list. The list of components is along the top here. You can see there's different types, and there'll be one for resistors and capacitors, etc. So find the appropriate component in the appropriate category, pretty much. So this one here, C5, is a cap, and you can see the code there. I'm not going to read it out, just pause the video here, maybe increase the resolution of the video so you can see that number if it's a bit blurry. That's what I use for most caps. When you get up to probably about 1 microfarad, you might need to use a bigger cap than this, but for most of the ones under that, the standard size caps, it works quite well. For resistors, I use this one, and again I'm talking about 1/4 watt resistors and 0.8 of a watt resistors. For germanium transistors, I've been using the TO5, that's the package type. And what else have I got? Diodes, I've been using DO34, and 8-pin IC. This is for a charge pump. I've been using I've been using just DIP 8, and there's also DIP 12 and DIP 16 amongst those two if you're using bigger caps. Bigger ICs. And then for the electro cap, I've been using this one. And I found most fit. Sometimes the legs are a bit close, but they fit all the same. They look fine. We're only talking sort of 1/2 mil. So that's basically the components that I've been using. For a potentiometer, I've actually just used. I still can't find the right potentiometer in the components list, and I've just been using 3 pads next to each other like that. That's a potentiometer there, and that's a potentiometer there, those 3, and that works fine. I mean, you just got to I usually wire into the PCB anyway, so it doesn't make much difference. So you can also find if there's a specific component that you're looking for. Sometimes you can find the package type on some of the electronic stores. So for instance, if you just want a standard small signal MPN, the 2N5088, you'll see that the package there, it's written there, it's TO92. So if you go into the transistor section in Diptrace, you should be able to find that, and that'll be the right one for that particular component. So if you do get stuck on something specific, you can look in some of the catalogs. You'll find what package they are, and you might be able to find the package type, the correct package type in the list. That's the way that I've found a couple of components that I've been looking for. So I'll just start with something really simple. We'll just put down 2 pads and change the track size. I won't change the pad size. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So just go up to the top here with the green and black button, place pad, put one down, put down another, right click to get out of the place pad tool, and then go up to this button up here, which is the route manual button, and click on that, and then just left click on the first pad and route it however you want. If you want to route it around something, for instance, you can go up like this and then left click again, and do all sorts of fancy shapes. Left click again, and you can route it as complicated as you like. To increase one of these from the pad to the corner here, this is called a segment, but this whole track is called a net. So if you want to change the whole track width size, right click and go net width and then go custom and then change that to whatever you want. So I'm just going to go 0.03 inches and it'll change the whole track. But if I just want to change that, like that one segment from the pad to the corner, I can right click on it and go segment width and then custom and then change that to say 6, just so we can see that what's going to happen, and you'll see that that increases in size but the rest of the track doesn't increase. You can also add a default size, so if you want to change, you're going to be changing a lot of things to 0.03, you can change it, and I'll just try and remember where this is. Okay, so I found it. It's under, I always have trouble finding this one. It's under route and then trace templates, and then you just add whatever you want. So for instance, I've just put test 0.04 and then go add, and it'll come up the top here. And then when you right click on your tracks, if you've got a whole bunch to change, it's just a bit quicker. Right click and go net, you'll see it's got test, the one that I just added. Just select that. It's a bit quicker that way. So you can add that when you find what width you're happy with, just add that into trace templates, and yeah, you can. It's a quicker way of selecting it instead of having to manually enter it every time you want to change a trace or a segment. So I've imported a bunch of components from the PCB layout that I showed you before, and you'll notice that this is one that I just put in then from the library, and the pads are actually a lot smaller than the pads on the components that I've imported. I've increased the size of these pads because I just find them easier to solder onto. It's just a personal preference of mine. But I'll show you how to change the pads in case something comes up where you actually want to change a pad. So this is probably going to be the most complicated example because it's got a lot of pads on it. But basically, you can either change the pads one at a time or you can change them all in one go. For the ICs, I find that all the pads will change that are not the rectangular pin one in one shot, and then you can just change that one on its own. So when it's highlighted red, right click on it and go pad properties, and I'll just change that one pin 16 up the top here on its own just to show you how to do that. You've got to uncheck this, use patterns pad properties, because that refers to the default settings. And then in the settings, go down to the width and change it to, we'll just increase it a bit to 0.8 and go OK. And you'll notice that just the one pad will change. You can change, a quick way to change all of these oval pins in one shot is to go, do it again, highlight it, highlight any of these 15 pins, pad properties, and select that this time and click on the patterns pad properties button and change it in here, and they will all change together except for the rectangular one will stay the same. It hasn't changed, but again, if you want to change one pin, just do what I did before, highlight it so it's red, right click, pad properties, make sure that that's unchecked because that's the default settings, and then just go in and change it like that. And you can even change it from rectangular to round to oval if you want to have them all look the same. So that'll bring that up to 0.8. So that's pretty much what I've done with all these components, just to increase the pad size a bit, because I find the default pad size is a bit small. So if you want to rotate a component, just select it and press spacebar, and it will spin it around. And just a note on another note on the tracks. A net is basically a group of tracks. So you'll notice that when I highlight one track, it actually all those tracks go blue. That means that they're all on the same net, and you can see what net it is if you right click on it. It'll say at the top net 1. So if I route another track, say from here to here, and I highlight it, you'll notice that that's not, that doesn't go blue, that track doesn't go blue because it's not a part of this net. It's not physically connected to this net. So if I want to change the color of a net, for instance, if it's not, but let's pretend that this was the power rail, the 9-volt power rail, I can right click on it and go net color and then custom and then change it to red, and you'll see that this all changes to red, but this one doesn't. I find this quite handy when you're putting the components down for a pedal. You can see it makes it a bit easier to keep track of things. So another common task is to add a copper pour, and I'll just quickly show you how to do that. Before I do though, we'll incorporate the ground track with the copper pour. It's a nice feature to do. I might as well just show you how to do that. And I'll just pretend that the ground track goes from here to here to here to here. And if you right click on that track, you'll see that that is now net 2. Just take note of what net the ground track is, because if you have tracks flying around all over the place, you want to make sure you select the right track when you put the copper pour down. So the copper pour button is this blue button up here with the little tracks on it, and I'll just quickly add it. It'll be very rough, but we're not concerned with neatness here. It's just an example like that, and then press enter when you're done, and it will come up with the copper pour settings, and then you can select what pattern you want to have the copper pour, how much clearance you want, and I'm actually going to increase that to 35. I think 25 is cutting it a bit fine. And then the connectivity button is where you'll set the ground track. So net 2 is going to be on the ground anyway, so the copper pour is going to be all ground. So select net 2 and hit OK, and you'll see that that particular net has disappeared. It's underneath the copper pour. You can sort of see it's still there. If you want to reverse that so you can actually see what's going on again, select the copper pour, right click and go state, and then do unpoured so you can actually see what's going on again. And then if you want to return it to the way it was, you can either just go back to state and do poured, or you can select it, and on the right hand side you'll see that button that says update, and it will just fill it back in for you again. So just one other thing with the copper pour, if you accidentally add too many points, you want to get rid of one. See, I've accidentally put an extra one down the bottom here. Just hover over it and select it, then just right click and go delete point, and it will get rid of the extra point. And you can also change the component, like if you want to change that to C1, just select it, and on the left hand side you can see all the details here. You can change that to, sorry, no, you actually have, this is something pretty stupid I reckon with Diptrace. You actually have to double click on that, and it brings up the enter the component number in there, and you can change that to C1, and then that'll update to C1. And also for your own reference, you can put in a value. So for instance, it's got 10 nanofarad. That's just you can actually directly type into this one for some reason, but you can't type it in the one above. But yeah, you can just put in whatever you want. It can be, you know, it's a box type, so I don't know, 100 nanofarad for instance. So I'm just trying to think of a few other things that I can show you just to get you started with Diptrace. Another thing too is these tracks. Sometimes when you start moving stuff around a lot, they get really complicated, and they just end up with so many segments, and you end up with this mess of zigzaggy sort of pattern. To get rid of any of these segments that you don't want, just right click on it and go delete node, and it will remove it. So I'll do that a few times just to make this this trace look a bit more basic. So yeah, anyway, something like that. So it can be, you can simplify it a bit like that. So that's most of the basic stuff I wanted to show you, and I'll just show you a few things on how to actually finish the board now. You can add dimensions to the board if you want, which is this button up the top here, place dimension. Just click on that. You've got horizontal and vertical, which are probably the main ones that you use. So for the horizontal, you just go across like that, left click and then left click again, and then you can move it up and down like that, and then left click again, and it will put it in place. And then you can edit that later anyway if you want. You can change the size, any of those dimensions like that. And obviously you do the same for vertical. Just quickly whack it in, you get the idea. And also, if you want to just duplicate the board, I'm just going to get rid of those because they're going to be in the way. I'll just refill that. Again, you just hit the update button on the right there to refill it. Select everything, left click and copy everything, and go Control C, Control V to copy it, and then grab it and move it over like that. Leave a bit of a gap. I usually leave a bit of a gap between the two because the hacksaw's got to go through the middle. And you can add some lines like a border around them by selecting the shape up the top here, rectangle. There's a few different shapes. Not filled, you don't want filled. You just want to add the rectangle around the outside, so the unfilled rectangle. And then I'll just put it in. It'll be a bit messy, but we'll just whack it in for example's sake. And then you want a line down the middle, so select the line and go like that. And if you hold shift, it'll keep it to, it looks like probably 15-degree angles or 45 maybe. So yeah, if you want to keep it straight like that, just hold down shift. And then if you select the square and go over to the right hand side here where it says type, see it's grey at the moment. It won't actually come out on when you etch the PCB. So go to type and change that to signal. This is just how I've been doing it. There might be a better way to do it, but this is just how I get around this. And then do it for the line as well, signal, and you'll notice that it changes the same color as the tracks. This cream sort of color. So you've got your two boards here, and you just want to make sure that it's actually on the sheet properly, because this is basically your A4 sheet, and I usually just pick them up and move them to the center a bit. If you start moving off to the side, sometimes you can end up off the sheet. And if you can't see that sheet, just go up to View and go Display Sheet, and yeah, it'll put the sheet in. I'll just show you one more thing before we move on to printing as well. If you want to add some labels like in, out, plus 9 volts, ground, etc., you can just do that with, there's a text button. Okay, sorry, I just got a bit lost there. It's next to the shape button, the shapes and lines buttons. You see ABC, just click on that, select where you want to type, and then you just type whatever you want. So, you know, plus 9 volts. Obviously that's a pretty big label there, so if you double click on it, if you right click on it and go font, you can change the size there, so make it a bit smaller to 8. You can actually go smaller than that. You just type the button in, even though the drop down box only goes to 8, you can actually put 6 if you want, to make it even smaller. And then you just position that wherever you want. So back on to finishing the boards. You pretty much should be where you're at now. You've got your board, you've put your border around. If you want a border, you can add the border around. And then you go File, and then Preview, and when I click Preview, I might actually lose the screen here from Fraps, so I'll just start the video again. Okay, so this is the print screen for the board now. You'll notice though that if you print it now, it's actually going to have a whole bunch of. I'll just move the scale up. It's got everything on there. It's got C1, R7. You don't want all that stuff to come out on the print. I actually zoomed in there by hitting scale at the top here. This is the preview scale, not the print scale. Print scale's below. Don't change that, because you'll actually end up printing off a massive PCB, which is obviously not what you want. Leave that on 100%. So to get rid of this green stuff, the green writing and everything that you don't want, pretty much, hit Objects over here. And I pretty much just get rid of everything up to copper pour. You don't want to get rid of copper pour, obviously, otherwise you'll lose your copper pour. But yeah, get rid of everything up to there, to copper pour, and then print your design onto whatever you're printing onto. I'd print onto magazine paper, but yeah, whatever you want to print onto. And just make sure, I can't show you because I'm at home, I don't have the laser jets at work, but if you're printing onto a laser jet, just make sure that you choose, you don't choose economy, turn economy off. You want the darkest, most high res print that you can do, so make sure the DPI is cranked up as well. And if you want to actually see how to print onto magazine paper and do an etch pretty much at home with just a bit of, you just need to get some ammonium persulfate, check out my other tutorial video on how to etch a PCB. It's a really easy way to do it. The chemicals are mild. You can do it at home. All you need is an iron and ammonium persulfate pretty much. Yeah, so check out my other video on that if you want to see how to actually etch the board. So that's pretty much it. It's a bit of a it's not a very intuitive program, Diptrace, to get around, but hopefully with what I've just shown you, you'll be able to get around and do some basic sort of PCB layouts and get started with it. And it's pretty. I find it pretty rewarding doing your own PCB from scratch. It's a bit of fun. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.